Hey guys, it's Mel. Welcome to my channel. Today's video is going to be a little bit of a chatty discussion about books and book ratings. I have got my cup of tea in this little Miss Sunshine mug, which I picked up from a secondhand store a few weeks ago for 50 cents, which I thought was a great bargain, and I thought that it was appropriate for a booktube video. So here's the thing. I've only just started thinking about star ratings for my books since I started using booktube, because that was when I also started using Goodreads, and that was the only time that I'd ever thought about giving my books ratings out of 5. Of course, prior to that, I definitely knew what I liked, and I definitely knew how to talk about the books that I liked and the books that I didn't like, and certainly knew how to discuss books, but like I said, I'd just never given them ratings out of 5 or used the 5-star system. So in order to decide how I personally wanted to rate my books, I went and watched a bunch of different people doing wrap-ups and book reviews, and I watched a few different people's videos where they discussed how they rate books. And there are a few things that I noticed. First of all, I noticed that the 5-star rating system is very, very subjective. It looks like it would be quite objective because you get to know whether a book is a 1 or a 5-star or anything in between. But of course, it's people giving those star ratings, and so everyone has a different perspective and a different opinion. Everyone takes different things into account when they decide whether they like a book or not. And everyone has different levels of what they deem good or not so good. Before I continue with anything else in this video, I'd like to just say 2 things. First of all, absolutely everyone on booktube is completely transparent about this. Nobody has suggested that their way of rating their books or their way of deciding whether a book is good or not has been anything other than subjective. So there's that. I am in no way attempting to pass judgment on the way that people are rating books. I'm just thinking about my own book rating and how I want to do that going forward. So before I go any further into the video as well, I just would like to say that anyone that I mentioned specifically in this video, I will link below. Like I said, when I was trying to figure out my own rating system, I watched a few different people's videos where they talk about how they rate books, and they were all really helpful. I particularly found 2 different videos from 2 different booktubers really helpful. The first one was Murphy Napier from her channel Murphy Napier, and the other person is Jo from Average Jo Reads. So Murphy Napier was talking about when she is reading a book that maybe wasn't intended for her. For example, middle grade is intended to be read by 10 to sort of 14-year-olds. So a woman in her late 20s, early 30s or above isn't at all the intended audience. So if Murphy was reading a middle grade book that she thought was well written, well paced, had great characters, a good plot structure, but she just didn't quite enjoy it, just wasn't quite, was missing something for her to really, really enjoy, she might choose to not give it a star rating, because she didn't feel that it was fair for her enjoyment of the book to drag down the rating scale, because in all other aspects it was a really great book. It's just that it wasn't intended for her. It wasn't intended for her to enjoy. So I also found Jo from Average Jo Reads video about the way he rates and thinks about rating books really helpful. And he talked about actually breaking the book up into different sections as he goes along, because he often finds that he will be reading a book and he'll be loving it, and then it'll get to the end and it won't have an ending that really appeals to him, and that will really drag down his rating of the book, because he will be thinking about that first of all as he's rating the book. And so he tries to rate the book through intro, main, body and conclusion, so that the ending doesn't totally skew the way that he has rated the rest of the book. So I found those 2 videos really helpful and really interesting, and it really got me thinking about different aspects of stories and what I find interesting and enjoyable about different aspects of stories. So initially I came up with a rating system whereby I would think about the characters and how they were written, the plot and how it was written, the story techniques, so the different tropes that were used, whether it was first person or third person, whether it was past or present tense, so the plot devices, all of that sort of thing, the setting, how well was the setting realised and discussed in the book, and my enjoyment of the book. So that's 5 different aspects of the story that I was going to look at, and then out of each of those, I would give each of those a rating out of 5, and then add it all up to a rating out of 25, and then divide that rating by 5 to get my ultimate 5-star rating. So what did that actually accomplish? Well, first of all, I ended up with some 0.000000 repeater, so I found I was having to round up to the nearest 0.1 or 0.10, which is fine because people give 3.5 stars, for example, quite frequently, but it does start to get a little bit messy when we're talking about 3.75 or 3.25 or something like that. So I kind of found that was a little bit hard, and then I would end up probably usually looking at my enjoyment and my overall feeling about the book, and then if I had a 3.75 I might bump it up to 4 if I really enjoyed the book, or if I had a 3.75 that I didn't necessarily love my experience of as much, I might bump it down to 3.5. So that was all fine, but what I found was that a book like The Night Circus would probably end up scoring quite low using this way of rating the books, because it's a very whimsical story, it's extremely poetic, it's extremely well written. I personally think the pacing is really lovely, but it doesn't really have a particularly obvious plot. I mean, I've heard people say it doesn't have plot at all, which I don't actually agree with, but I think the plot is very meandering, it's not particularly obvious, it doesn't have a very neatly summed up ending. Some of the characters are really well painted and you get a really good sense of their personality, and some of the characters are not necessarily given a huge amount of story time. So I might have had to have given character and plot lower scales. Story techniques, I actually personally think that there were a lot of really great story techniques, so that might have got a higher grade, but overall it wouldn't necessarily have gotten a star rating that I was particularly happy with, because I love The Night Circus, I think it's amazing, and I think it deserves 5 stars, but if I'm just going off of character and plot, then it would be more like a 3. Then I thought about, well, some books I'm going to enjoy a lot more than others, or enjoy a lot less than others, even if some of those factors are taken into account. So even if a book is technically, the characters are really well drawn and really well written, and the plot is really well paced and really well explored and detailed, and there's a lot of really great techniques in the story, I might not particularly enjoy the plot. It might not be something that I find very interesting. It might be a setting, I don't think they draw the setting very well, and that kind of takes me out of the story because I don't feel a sense of place as I'm reading the story. I might find that the characters are well drawn and well written, but I don't actually like any of the characters, and I maybe find them annoying. So a book like that would technically score really high in a lot of these points, but then I wouldn't necessarily have enjoyed it very much, so I might want to give it a lower rating. And obviously giving it a lower rating from the enjoyment factor will bring that down, but maybe not quite by as much as I'd want to bring it down. So I toyed with the idea of giving enjoyment a higher rating. So rather than saying it gets a rating out of 5, giving it a rating out of 10, and then be up to 30, and then dividing by 6 and so on. And that was fine, but I mean, look, the honest truth is that, again, something like The Night Circus, it wouldn't really move it around as much as I might want it to, and I don't know that it would necessarily bring it from a 3 to a 5 by doing that. So thinking about all of these things, thinking about the way that I read books, thinking about what I enjoy in books, made me come to the realization that maybe a 5-star rating isn't actually all that appropriate for me. Maybe what I would rather do is what I have always done in the past and give you a sense of the things that I liked about the book, give you a sense of what I thought worked, give you a sense of things maybe I didn't think worked as well, and then suggest if you like X or Y, you will like this book, and so on. So that is what you will have seen in my February wrap-up and my audiobook videos that I have released last Wednesday and Thursday, Wednesday and Friday, Wednesday and Saturday even. So for the moment, what I've decided ultimately is that I will not give a rating out of 5. I will talk about the book, I will talk about my experience with the book, I will talk about various aspects of the book that I liked or I didn't like. I will give you an overall sense of my feeling about the book, but I won't give a star rating. So yeah, those are my thoughts at the moment. Basically, it boils down to I am a very emotional person, I'm a very emotive person, and I have strong emotional reactions to things. So if I'm loving a book because it's appealing to that side of things, because my emotions are sparked, because I'm feeling joy or because I'm feeling sadness even, then I will appreciate a book more than a book that has all the technical beauty without an emotional element, if that makes sense. Alright guys, so that was my incredibly rambly thoughts on the way that I rate or talk about books. I'd love to know what you guys think. How do you think about your books? How do you rate your books? What is more important to you? Are you more of a plot-driven person? Are you character-driven? Do you appreciate technical elements? Do you like the atmosphere? How do you think about your books and your reading experience? Comment below and let me know. Yeah. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time.